Greetings, this is Kristen from Weird Reddit 111, your go-to hub for all things uncanny, from glitches in the Matrix to the paranormal. Your engagement on this channel brings me great joy. Each like, comment, share, and subscription is a testament to your support, and for that, I am truly grateful. If you're new here, I invite you to join our community by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Together, we can reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. And don't forget to hit the notification button to stay updated with our latest content. Now, let's delve into today's intriguing stories. Our first narrative comes from JT Photography, who shares a peculiar incident from their time working at a gas station. The site was small, nestled between a grocery store and a gym. One day, a sudden downpour began, but only on the grocery store side. The gym side was bathed in sunlight with bright white clouds. The contrast was so stark that the parking lot lights had to be turned on in the middle of the afternoon. Jate Photography stood in the doorway, one half wet from the rain, the other dry. While this phenomenon is explainable by science, the perfect division still struck JT Photography as very odd. Our second tale is from Still Size 3594, who recounts an unsettling experience with her husband. They were driving home at dusk, and as they crested the last hill, their familiar town had transformed into an unrecognizable landscape. Both were understandably shaken. Then, slowly, the familiar contours of Swift Current, Saskatchewan, morphed back into view. It was a disturbing experience, difficult to articulate, but made all the more remarkable by the fact they both witnessed it. Still, Size 3594 also hints at other strange occurrences in the town during their stay there. To summarize, these two stories highlight the strange and unexplained phenomena that can occur in our everyday lives. JT Photography's experience reminds us how nature can sometimes defy our expectations, creating a surreal moment that challenges our perception of reality. Meanwhile, Still Size 3594's account shows that even familiar places can momentarily become unfamiliar, raising questions about our perception of the world around us. Both stories serve as reminders that the world is full of mysteries, waiting to be explored. Our next story comes from a user named Jazz Taprasta, who recounts an almost surreal near-death experience. I fell out of the third dimension into another dimension, they say. Their words paint a vivid picture of a reality where time and space were no longer linear. They could see their life, their past, their memories all laid out before them like an intricate, moving fractal. They saw their life experiences in a form that appeared to them like a loaf of bread. But it wasn't just any loaf of bread. It was an object that represented their life, their existence in this realm. When they questioned why their life looked like this, they received a profound insight. All realities are existing at the same time, and that random objects in one, like a carton of milk in the grocery store, could be pieces of entities or even experiences in another time or dimension. In this otherworldly state, Jazz Tabrasta discovered that an experience in our three-dimensional world could be a manifestation of a being in a higher dimension. What may seem trivial to us could hold a deeper, more profound meaning in another plane of existence. After what felt like an eternity, Jazz Taprasta decided to return to their reality. They chose the dimension where they saw a close friend looking at them with sadness. And just like that, they were back, waking up to their familiar world, yet forever changed by the experience. Their story leaves us with a lot to ponder. Is there more to our reality than meets the eye? Do our experiences hold greater significance in other dimensions? These questions and more are what makes stories like Jazz to Brastas so intriguing and thought provoking. Our next story is a prequel to our final story of the day. It will help explain some of the events in the next story in a smaller version. This story comes from a user named This Is Temporary 1213. Their experience was a bit different, yet it still dealt with the concept of dimensions and realities. One night they begin, I had a nang before mine, so I may have been about to die from starving my brain of oxygen. I don't know. They were lying on their couch in the lounge with a few mates when everything disappeared. Their vision went black, and they found themselves in a void. The only thing they could see was a small light in the distance. Suddenly, it was right in front of them and huge. It was a wheel similar to the wheel of Samsara, which represents the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth in Hinduism and Buddhism. This is temporary. 1213 doesn't remember much of the experience, only that they somehow knew that everything happens again and again. The wheel they saw had millions of sections, each one a different moment in time. They were told to choose a moment. The moment they chose was them sitting on a friend's mattress in his lounge. They were transported there, sitting in their friend's lounge instead of their own. It didn't last long. Once they thought of their home, they felt like they were being sucked through every single moment that had ever occurred. They felt like they were being sorted into a million different versions of themselves through different realities, worlds, to see which one fit. When they returned to their own body, they felt like they had uncovered a great secret. It was like trying to remember a dream. The experience was fleeting, yet it left a lasting impact on them. They spent the last 2 years trying to understand it. They came across this post coincidentally, and it resonated with them. They also just finished the book Life After Life by Kate Atkinson, which deals with the concept of reincarnation. Its protagonist, Ursula, keeps dying and being reborn immediately into the same life, often experiencing deja vu and fears based on her past lives. This is temporary. 1213's experience echoes Jazz to Prasta's story, suggesting that the nature of our reality and existence might be far more complex and multidimensional than we can comprehend.
Hey guys, this is Kristen with Weird Reddit 111. How you guys doing? So this is going to be the last story. It is by SL_Kripkenstein. This is a Reddit user who does not want to be reached out, commented to, or asked questions about this story. It is a near-death experience that, wow, I've read half of it. And as I'm trying to record this, my daughters are running amok and being loud. So if you hear anything in the background, guys, I do apologize, but I'm not redoing this recording again. You're going to have to just deal with the mistakes and the errors and deal with my non-robotic voice. See, that's the difference of robotic and human. We're going to make mistakes, so deal with it. Love and blessings to y'all all. Enjoy the story. A friend persuaded me to submit this account against my natural tendency on this matter. I have no real interest in following it up or being contacted in any way. It was a very frightening episode. It is traumatic enough, to be honest, to recall it just once at length here. But having set out to describe it, I will be as frank and as accurate as language can allow. On the 15th of July in 2013, at about 7:45 a.m., I was on my way to work and approaching an intersection and getting ready to take a left-hand turn. This is notoriously dangerous intersection on any day, and there have been many accidents there. It's hard to see if the intersection is clear from the right and from the left turn is particularly hazardous. I was running late, and in a flustered state of mind, I had an important meeting that I had been planning carefully over a number of days, and a really stupid delay at the last minute put all of that in jeopardy. It should be also understood that a much better traffic system exists in that intersection today than was in place at the time of this incident. I approached the intersection in a hurry. I looked to the right, and I believed that I had correctly viewed that nothing was approaching from the right. So I made the left turn. As I crossed the intersection, I glanced right once more and saw a vehicle heading straight for me at what could have only been an excess of 90 miles per hour. We saw each other. I saw the look in the other guy's eyes because we were that close. A collision was absolutely inevitable. There is no way on this earth that it could have been avoided. What happens next is extremely difficult to describe, but I will do my best. And this can be and must be taken to apply to everything that I'm going to attempt to relate from this point onwards. Words, even the most carefully chosen words, capture no more than 1% of this experience at best. And even the very poorly, even if you try that hard. This is quite possibly the most frustrating thing about giving this account. Across the front of the car on the left, in almost the opposite direction to the oncoming vehicle, was a field. I suddenly became very aware of a very large object approaching slowly on a diagonal across this field. It was coming directly towards my car. Time was not functioning normally while this was happening. And if it was functioning at all, I had the space to notice this happening. But I can't explain how I was able to do that. The object, when I first saw it, appeared to be about the size of a 10-floor tower block. It subjectively seemed to be about 200 or 300 yards across the field. These size and distance descriptions are meaningless, as I'll try to explain in a moment. The object resembled a giant water wheel lying on its side and rotating as it approached me and my vehicle. As it got closer, this didn't take time. As we understand it, I saw my first observation about its size was wildly inaccurate. It was more like the size of a small city, and as it got closer still, I understood that the scale and distance estimates were meaningless. It was larger than what we think of as the world. As it approached me, I became aware of its power and significance. My mind interpreted this as being an up-close, grand, giant-scale physical object. Okay, now this part is particularly difficult to explain as the object drew near to me. A kind of sensation came over my person, and I knew exactly what this thing was. Not only that, but I knew everything that pertained to it. What it was doing, what its business was with me, where and when I had seen it before, why I was seeing it now, and many other things that I cannot now recall. I had seen the object before I was born, and I will see it again when I die. We all knew it before we were born. We will all see it when we die. But this information is eclipsed from us while we are alive. And that was why I was seeing it now and in this experience, because I was in the process of dying in a fatal car crash. Here's what I can remember. At best, words can't tell you how to describe this. This will wasn't something that moved towards me through the world or through reality somehow. That was an illusion that my senses were constructing for me. The will was reality itself. It represented every conceivable possibility for life or for the world that could ever be envisioned or imagined. As it approached, I became aware that what we call our world was contained within it. It was simply one of the numberless slots or paddles in the water wheel. It had always been so. My life, your life, our world, all of us. We are a part of this wheel structure, and we had always been a part of the structure. It simply now made itself visible to me. There then began a truly terrifying dimension of this experience. Words cannot even begin to describe the level of fear I experienced through this. The water wheel sort of rolled across me and then across the place where my car was in the road. As it did so, I began to be hit by each paddles in the wheel. Remember that all this is just a way of talking. It does not and cannot remotely describe the real situation as it actually was. But some sense of it can be had by imagining that in the space of each paddle, there was a kind of spinning film of water, like a waterfall on its side. Imagine a film of water being thrown outwards from the wheel in each slot, as if by centrifuge force. Imagine being slapped or splashed by each of these films as you collide with it and pass through the next one. This is what was happening. Except these weren't just films of water. They were, for what of a better term, possible realities, or what we might think of as universes or worlds. Again, our world, our entire universe, as we normally think of it, was simply one among these infinite number of universes. How did I know that there was an infinite number? I just did. I kind of knowing came with the event, and there was no doubting this knowing. It was so, and I knew it was so. And because I had knowledge and understood what was happening in ways I could no longer communicate, I was afraid. I understood that I was about to be subject to the process that humans approximate with the term reincarnation. This is why the will had come. It represented a kind of discrepancy that had to be fixed. The event, or perhaps the imminent event, on the highway had caused me to slip out or fall between the paddles on the wheel. This structure had some kind of cosmic purpose of sorting things into their correct natural place. I was afraid and resisted being sorted, so the wheel stepped up its aggressive attempts to sort me correctly, if you get what I mean. I was terrified, truly terrified. With this came another understanding that frightened me even more. I knew that unless I soon selected one of these realities to slide back into, that the will would coerce the situation by deciding for me. We didn't want that to happen. One way or another, I would be sorted, whether I liked it or not. If I didn't choose for myself, I would simply be fitted into a space at some nearest position on the wheel to the point where I failed to make a decision, if that makes sense to you. I was aware of having a limited ability to choose, but not much. Even that limited ability wasn't much used because each reality slammed against me through me before I could make much sense of what it contained. Even I didn't remain the same from one slot in the wheel to the next. It was as if each film broke me over. I was destroyed and made again from the ground up as a completely new self. There was no continuous me that traveled unaltered through that wheel and can somehow report back on this experience. This is just one of the many things that is so very hard to explain. The very idea of continuous self was a contradiction in this experience. I have forgotten, or even perhaps it was deliberately suppressed the vast majority of what I saw in various universes are paddles of the wheel. At the beginning, they seem very similar to this world we inhabit or believe ourselves to inhabit. For example, I have a floating memory of seeing various scenes of how the accident played out. I suspect that these were all the nearby paddles on the wheel. In one of them, I remember seeing what looked like my vehicle thrown right off the wheel, off the road, and so badly damaged that it looked like it had been folded in the center like a pocket knife. I seem to recall many other scenarios like this that I can no longer remember. To clarify, what I mean is that it seemed to file or flip through numerous conceivable quantum possibilities for the outcome of the accident. I can remember doing this, but I cannot remember what any of these particular worlds contain. I have no explanation for why I failed to experience any of the phenomena usually reported with the imminent death, situations like the tunnel, the light, and so on. I suspect that the imminent death experiences are a symbolic scenarios that flash up as just as someone is entering or exiting the wheel. But before the situation has developed very far, at no stage did I see anything whatever that resembled what we humans would think of as an afterlife or spirit world, or life after death realm. It's as if we are either on the outer surface of the will itself in one of its realized worlds, or else we are dead and we are the will itself. The will is space where all the uncreated possibilities exist, but nothing completed or actual. And bear in mind that nothing was concealed from me. I was the all. I knew the all. I certainly don't retain or pretend to, but I knew it then. I began to grow extremely panicked each time I thought I was just beginning to get a handle on things. I would be slapped over violently and ruthlessly into a new slot in the wheel, and the whole new me would crystallize along with the memories and assumptions that went along in that world. I remember none of who I was a moment ago in another paddle on the wheel. I had no memory of whatsoever of where I had come from on or the highway situation in my world. I had zero memory of that world. I knew I had came from somewhere, but I had no recollection of where that was or who I was. It was about the most bizarre thing you could imagine. Somehow, though, and I can only assume that it happened without conscious action on my part, the possibilities appearing in the will began to narrow down and become somewhat more familiar again. Scenarios associated with the accident began to appear once more. I say once more, but I have no real way of knowing whether this was a separate incident of this to what I describe above, or whether it was really the same incident because time was functioning so unusual during the whole episode. Again, I saw or seemed to see variations or possible world outcomes of where I died in the crash. I seem to understand intuitively that if I went into any of these, I would be there only for a few moments or minutes at most, and then I would have to come out and face the will again almost immediately. I didn't want to do this, obviously, but there was an odd kind of knowing associated with that too. The will didn't seem bothered one way or the other. It didn't seem to matter to it whether I emerged again in 3 minutes' time or 3 decades' time. All it cared about was sorting me, and there was a kind of ruthlessness to this that I will not soon forget. I found myself back on the highway in what seemed to be very short distance back up the road. Still approaching the intersection. This is just one of the many mysteries associated with the event that I cannot explain. Did I choose a version of our universe in which the accident hadn't quite happened yet, but just seconds away from happening? I can't say, because I have no memory of making that decision. I remember the look on the driver's face as clearly as if it was yesterday. I remember him bracing back on the wheel, but I braked as I reached the intersection, and that driver or his car were simply nowhere to be seen. Just vanished. Alright guys, that's our story. Just remember to like, share, and subscribe. And I do hope you enjoyed this Glitch in the Matrix video. Ciao, ow, bow, wow. Have a nice day, y'all.